What would you do if cleaning a stranger's penthouse meant losing your freedom forever? Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. Amara Williams never imagined that accepting one extra cleaning shift would turn her life into something straight out of a crime thriller. She was just trying to pay off her student loans, working 2 jobs while finishing her nursing degree online. But the moment she walked into that marble-floored penthouse overlooking the Chicago skyline, the moment she saw the blood on the white Persian rug, the moment those ice-blue eyes locked onto hers from across the room, everything changed. "You shouldn't have seen that," he said, his Russian accent thick and dangerous, his hand still gripping the phone he'd just used to give orders that made her blood run cold. She should have run, should have screamed, should have done anything except stand there frozen while Dmitry Volkov, a man whose name she didn't yet know but whose presence filled the entire space, decided her fate with a single look. 24 hours earlier, Amara's biggest worry had been whether she could afford her textbooks for next semester. She'd been working for elite cleaning services for 3 years, taking the overnight shifts that paid an extra $2 per hour. Most of her clients were hedge fund managers, corporate lawyers, people who barely noticed her existence as she scrubbed their toilets and polished their designer fixtures. That Thursday night, her supervisor called with panic in her voice. "Amara, I need you to cover Jennifer's shift. High-profile client, penthouse suite in the Sinclair Tower. Triple pay, but you need to be there by midnight." Triple pay meant she could finally replace her laptop that kept crashing during online lectures. Amara didn't hesitate. "I'll take it." The Sinclair Tower was the kind of building where the doorman wore a better suit than most CEOs. The lobby gleamed with Italian marble and gold accents, crystal chandeliers catching the light like frozen fireworks. Amara felt distinctly out of place in her cleaning company uniform, carrying her bucket of supplies. "Penthouse suite," she told the night concierge, a thin man with suspicious eyes who looked her up and down before checking his tablet. "Ms. Williams, yes, you're expected. Service elevator is to your left. Code is 8765. The elevator ride took forever, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored walls. She looked tired, dark circles under her brown eyes, her natural hair pulled back in a practical bun, her uniform hanging loose on her frame. She'd lost weight from skipping meals, choosing rent over food too many times this month. When the elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse, no hallway, no buffer, Amara stepped into a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Chicago's glittering nightscape. The furniture was all sharp angles and expensive leather, abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than her car. Everything was pristine, minimalist, cold, except for the blood. It wasn't much, just a few drops on the white rug near the massive desk, a smear on the arm of the leather chair. But it was unmistakably fresh, still wet, catching the light from the city below. Amara's nursing training kicked in before her common sense could catch up. Blood meant injury. Injury meant someone needed help. "Hello?" Her voice echoed in the vast space. "Is anyone here? Do you need medical assistance?" The response came from the shadows near the window, a figure she hadn't noticed, standing so still he might have been part of the darkness. "You're early." The voice made her jump, her heart slamming against her ribs. He stepped into the light, and Amara forgot how to breathe. He was tall, easily 6'3", with the build of someone who knew violence intimately. His suit probably cost more than her entire year's salary, perfectly tailored to his broad shoulders and narrow waist. But it was his face that held her captive. Sharp Slavic features, a jaw that could cut glass, pale eyes that seemed to see straight through her. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and there was a cut above his left eyebrow, fresh enough that it hadn't stopped bleeding yet. Amara found her voice, professional instinct overriding fear. "You're hurt. That cut needs cleaning, possibly stitches." Something flickered in those cold eyes. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. "You're concerned about me?" His accent wrapped around each word like velvet over steel. "It's what I'm trained for. I'm in nursing school." She set down her cleaning supplies, reaching for the first aid kit she always carried. "May I?" He didn't move, just watched her approach with the intensity of a predator studying prey. Up close, he was even more imposing. She could smell his cologne, expensive, woody, with notes of leather and something darker. Could see the tension in his shoulders, the barely controlled violence coiled beneath that expensive suit. Amara had grown up in rough neighborhoods. She knew danger when she saw it. This man was a walking red flag, every instinct screaming at her to run. But she'd also been raised by a nurse grandmother who'd taught her that when someone was bleeding, you helped. Simple as that. "This might sting," she warned, opening an alcohol wipe. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I've survived worse." She believed him. As she cleaned the cut, their faces inches apart, she felt the weight of his stare. He didn't flinch, didn't react to the sting of alcohol on the open wound, just studied her with those unnerving pale eyes. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice low enough that she felt it in her chest. "Amara." "Amara?" He repeated it like he was tasting the word, committing it to memory. "Beautiful. It means eternal in Sanskrit." "You know Sanskrit?" She couldn't hide her surprise as she applied butterfly bandages to close the cut. "I know many things." His hand came up, catching her wrist with surprising gentleness. His fingers were warm against her skin, his touch sending an electric shock up her arm. "But I don't know why you're really here." "I told you I'm with the cleaning service." Jennifer was supposed to come tonight. She's been cleaning this penthouse for 6 months. She knows not to ask questions, not to arrive early, not to... His eyes dropped to the bloodstain on the rug. "See things." Amara's throat went dry. "I was covering her shift. She called in sick, and now you've seen something you shouldn't have." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. His grip on her wrist tightened fractionally, not painful, but unmistakably a restraint. "I didn't see anything," Amara said quickly, trying to pull her hand back. "I just came to clean. The blood. I thought someone was hurt. I was just trying to help." "But you did see." He stood, keeping her wrist captured, using his height to full advantage. "You saw the blood. You heard my phone conversation. You're a smart woman, Amara. Smart enough to be in nursing school. Smart enough to piece things together." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't insult my intelligence." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "You know exactly what kind of man I am. You're just trying to decide if you're brave enough to run or smart enough to stay quiet." But I still didn't know who he really was. Not his name, not his position, not the full extent of the power he wielded. I just knew that I was in way over my head, standing in a penthouse with a man whose eyes held the kind of cold calculation that came from making life and death decisions. And I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. Dimitri released her wrist but didn't step back, maintaining the invasion of her personal space. "Sit." It wasn't a request. Amara's legs felt weak anyway, so she sank onto the leather sofa, her mind racing through possibilities. Call the police? Her phone was in her bag, across the room. Run? The elevator required a code. Scream? They were on the top floor of a building designed for privacy. He poured 2 glasses of something amber from a crystal decanter, handing her one before settling into the chair across from her. The bloodstains sat between them like an accusation. "Drink. You look like you're about to pass out." "I don't drink on the job." "You're not working anymore. Not as a maid, anyway." The implication hung in the air. Amara's hands shook as she took a sip. expensive scotch that burned all the way down. What does that mean? It means we have a problem, Amara Williams. He'd somehow learned her full name in the seconds she'd been processing her situation. You've seen evidence of my business. You're a witness to something that could complicate my operations. I have 3 options. Ensure your silence permanently, buy your silence, or keep you close enough that silence is your only option. You're threatening to kill me? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I'm presenting options. He swirled his scotch, watching the liquid catch the light. The first option is messy and permanent. I prefer not to kill civilians, especially ones brave enough to try to bandage my wounds. The second option, money, only works if you're greedy. But you're not, are you? You're working 2 jobs to pay for school, sending money home to your mother in Atlanta. Money would help, but it wouldn't buy true loyalty. How do you know about my mother? He smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible all at once. I know everything about you now. Your address in Pilsen, your schedule at the diner where you waitress on weekends, your GPA, impressive by the way, your younger brother's soccer games that you never miss when you can help it. I've had people pulling your entire life story while we've been talking. Amara felt sick. That's insane. That's survival. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, those pale eyes intense. Welcome to my world, Malishka. Information is power, and I don't take chances. Stop calling me that, and stop acting like you know me. Malishka means little one in Russian. It's affectionate. Something in his expression softened fractionally. And I do know you. Your grandmother raised you after your father left, taught you to help people no matter the circumstances. That's why you approached me despite the blood, despite your fear. That's why you're still here, trying to understand the situation instead of falling apart. He was right, and Amara hated it. You still haven't told me your name. Dmitry Volkov. He said it like she should recognize it, and when her expression stayed blank, he actually looked surprised. You really don't know who I am? Should I? Most people in this city know to be afraid when they hear that name. He stood, walking to the window, his silhouette dark against the glittering cityscape. I run the Bratva's Chicago operations. The Russian mafia, if you prefer American terms. Drugs, weapons, protection, money laundering, though we prefer to call it financial consulting. I control the ports, several unions, and about 40% of the city's underground economy. The world tilted slightly. Amara gripped the glass tighter. You're telling me you're a crime boss? The crime boss, in this city. There are others, the Italians, the Irish, some upstart Mexican cartels, but we have the most influence, the most reach. He turned back to her, backlit like some fallen angel. And now you, Amara Williams, nursing student and part-time maid, know enough to be extremely dangerous to me. I won't tell anyone, I swear, I'll forget everything. You can't. He moved back toward her with predatory grace. That blood you saw, it's from a rat in my organization. Someone who thought they could sell information to the FBI. I handled it personally, here, tonight. You walked in minutes after I'd finished that particular conversation. You heard me give orders to my men to clean up the situation. Amara's mind flashed back to the phone conversation she'd partially heard when she arrived. Harsh Russian words, a tone that promised violence. So, here's what's going to happen. Dmitry crouched in front of her, bringing them eye to eye. This close, she could see flecks of gray in those blue irises, could see the faint scar along his jaw, could feel the heat radiating from his body. Option 3. You're going to stay close to me. You're going to live here, in this penthouse. You're going to be visible as my companion. The world will think you're my mistress, which provides protection and explanation for your constant presence. You're insane! Amara shot to her feet, forcing him to rise with her. I'm not going to be some mob boss's prisoner. I have a life, a job, school. You'll continue your schooling. Online, from here. I'll cover your tuition. His voice remained maddeningly calm. Your jobs? You'll quit both. I'll make sure your mother continues to receive the same support you've been sending. Your brother's soccer fees? Paid. Your grandmother's medical bills? Handled. I don't want your blood money. But you'll take it, because the alternative is your family being vulnerable. Not from me, he added, seeing her expression. But I have enemies, Amara, many enemies. The moment they learn about you, and they will, because I can't keep a civilian witness hidden for long, they'll see you as leverage against me. The only way to protect you is to make you mine publicly, untouchable. This is kidnapping. This is survival for both of us. He reached out, tucking a stray curl behind her ear with surprising gentleness. The gesture was intimate, possessive, and it made her shiver. I didn't plan this. I didn't want this complication. But here we are, and I will do whatever necessary to protect my operations. That includes protecting you from the consequences of your accidental involvement. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button because this story is just getting started and you won't want to miss what happens when Amara tries to escape. Amara's mind raced. How long? How long would I have to stay? Until it's safe, until the FBI investigation dies down, until my enemies stop circling, until you're no longer a liability. His hand dropped, but didn't go far, resting on her shoulder. Weeks, maybe months. I can't give you an exact timeline. And if I refuse? Then I'll have to use option 1 or 2, and I really don't want to. You're brave, intelligent, and you tried to help me when you had every reason to run. Those are rare qualities. I'd prefer to keep you alive and close. It was the closest thing to a compliment wrapped in a threat she'd ever heard. Amara looked around the penthouse, the luxury, the view, the gilded cage he was offering. I need guarantees. About my family, about my safety, about... She met his eyes. About you not touching me. Something dark flickered across his face. I'm not a rapist, Amara. You'll be safe from me in that regard. This arrangement is protective custody disguised as a relationship, nothing more. Then I need it in writing. He laughed, an actual laugh that transformed his face, making him look younger, almost human. You want a contract with a mob boss? I want insurance that you'll keep your word. Fair enough. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. My lawyer will draft something. Terms of your stay, financial arrangements for your family, your educational expenses, rules of engagement. Rules? You don't leave without security. You don't contact anyone from your old life without my knowledge. You don't ask about my business. You maintain the appearance of willing participation in public. His eyes locked onto hers. And in private, we establish boundaries that make this bearable for both of us. It was insane, all of it. But as Amara looked at this dangerous, beautiful man who turned her life upside down in less than an hour, she realized she didn't have a choice. Not really. Fine, but I want my own room, my own space. This penthouse has 4 bedrooms. Take your pick. He extended his hand. Do we have an agreement? Amara stared at his offered hand, knowing that taking it meant stepping into a world she'd never imagined. But she also knew that walking away wasn't an option. Not anymore. She shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and when he smiled, really smiled, it stole the breath from her lungs. Welcome to your new life, Malishka. Try not to hate me too much. But I would learn that hating Dmitry Volkov was the least of my problems, because what started as forced proximity would become something far more dangerous than any mob war. It would become undeniable attraction. The first week living with Dmitry was like learning to breathe underwater. Disorienting, suffocating, surreal. True to his word, a lawyer appeared the next day with contracts that somehow made captivity sound almost reasonable on paper. Her mother's mortgage was paid off, her brother's college fund was established, her grandmother's prescriptions, the expensive ones not fully covered by insurance, were handled through a mysterious scholarship foundation. Dmitri was buying her compliance with the one currency she couldn't refuse, her family's security. The penthouse became her gilded prison. She took the bedroom farthest from his, a suite larger than her old apartment, with a king bed that felt obscene in its luxury, a bathroom with a soaking tub she'd only seen in magazines, and a walk-in closet that had been mysteriously filled with clothes in her exact size. "How did you know my measurements?" she'd asked that first morning, finding designer dresses and casual wear perfectly arranged. Dmitri had looked up from his laptop at the kitchen island, because of course he worked from home when he wasn't doing whatever mob bosses did. "I'm thorough. Did you find everything you need?" "This is more clothes than I've owned in my entire life." "Get used to it. We have a charity gala Friday night. You'll need to look the part." "The part of what? Your prisoner with a good wardrobe?" He'd smiled that dangerous smile. "The part of a woman who chose to be with me. Can you do that, Amara? Can you pretend?" Pretending became her full-time job. She attended online classes during the day, studying pathophysiology and pharmacology while Dmitri conducted business in his office. Phone calls in Russian that sounded either murderous or casual, she could never tell. He'd emerge for lunch, insisting they eat together. "If you're supposedly my mistress, you need to know how to exist in my world," he'd explained. "That starts with being comfortable in my presence." Comfortable was impossible. He dominated every room he entered, his presence like static electricity that made her hyper-aware of every movement, every glance. He'd shed his jacket by afternoon, working in just his dress shirt with sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that were all corded muscle and faint scars. He'd run his hands through his dark hair when he was frustrated, making it stand up in ways that shouldn't be attractive, but absolutely were. Amara hated noticing, hated that her body responded to him even as her mind screamed danger. The charity gala arrived too quickly. Dmitri's people, a terrifyingly efficient stylist named Irina, transformed Amara into someone unrecognizable. The dress was deep emerald green, hugging every curve before flowing to the floor, with a neckline that was suggestive without being trashy. Her natural hair was styled in elegant curls cascading down her back. Makeup emphasized her features subtly but dramatically. When she emerged from her room, Dmitri was waiting in the living room, devastating in a black tuxedo. His eyes tracked up from her strappy heels to her face, and something flashed in those pale depths that made her stomach flip. "Bоже mой," he breathed in Russian. Then, in English, "You're stunning. I clean up okay." She tried for casual, failed miserably. He crossed to her, pulling a jewelry box from his pocket. The final touch. The necklace was obscene, diamonds and emeralds in an intricate design that probably cost more than a house. When he fastened it around her neck, his fingers brushed her skin, lingering longer than necessary. "There, now you look like you belong to me." "I don't belong to anyone." "Tonight you do." His hands rested on her shoulders, his reflection joining hers in the mirror. "These people are dangerous, Amara, powerful. They'll test you, try to find weaknesses. You need to stay close to me, follow my lead, and above all, make them believe this is real." "And how do I do that?" His hands slid down her arm, fingers interlacing with hers. The touch sent heat racing through her veins. "You let me touch you. You smile at my jokes. You look at me like I'm the only man in the room." His voice dropped to a whisper against her ear. "You make them believe that you're falling for me. And what will you do? I'll make them believe I'm falling for you." He turned her to face him, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact, which shouldn't be difficult. Before she could process that statement, he stepped back, offering his arm. "Ready to enter the lion's den, Malishka?" The gala was held at the Four Seasons Ballroom, dripping with wealth and danger disguised as respectability. Everyone there had money, new money, old money, blood money. Amara could spot the other criminals easily. They had the same predatory grace as Dmitri, the same calculating eyes that assessed threat levels before making small talk. Dmitri kept her close, his hand possessive on her lower back as he introduced her to Chicago's elite. Business owners, politicians, socialites, all pretending they didn't know exactly what kind of man Dmitri Volkov was. Or perhaps not pretending. Perhaps they simply didn't care. And this is? A silver-haired man with dead eyes gestured to Amara with his champagne flute. "Amara, my companion." Dmitri's tone made it clear the topic was closed. But the man, introduced as Viktor Morozov, another Bratva member, persisted. "She's exquisite. Where did you find such a rare flower?" "That's none of your concern." Dmitri's voice dropped to something dangerous, and Amara felt him tense beside her. Viktor smiled, unrepentant. "Protective already? How unlike you, Dmitri. Usually you share your toys." The temperature dropped. Amara felt Dmitri's hand tighten on her waist, felt the violence coiled in his body, ready to strike. This was about to escalate into something ugly, here in the middle of a glittering ballroom, and she had to stop it. She leaned in to Dmitri, placing her hand on his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath the expensive fabric. "Dance with me," she said softly, meeting his eyes. "Please?" It was the please that did it. She saw him struggle with the instinct to destroy Viktor for the disrespect, saw rationality war with violence. Then he nodded, guiding her to the dance floor without another word to Viktor. As they began to waltz, because of course he could waltz perfectly, she felt his body slowly relax against hers. "Thank you," he murmured. "That was good thinking. You were going to hit him? I was going to kill him. There's a difference." His hand splayed wide on her back, pulling her incrementally closer. "No one talks about you like that. No one." He was testing you, seeing if I was important enough to risk a confrontation over. Dmitri's eyes widened slightly. "You understood that? I grew up in rough neighborhoods, remember? I know how men establish dominance." He wanted to see if I was really yours or just convenient. She paused. "For what it's worth, you convinced him." "Did I convince you?" The question was quiet, intense, his gaze searching hers as they moved together. "Of what?" "That you're important, that you're protected, that you're—" He stopped himself, jaw clenching. "Never mind." But Amara heard what he hadn't said. "That you're mine." And the terrifying part was how much her body wanted to believe it. Being this close to him, feeling his strength, his heat, the way he moved with lethal grace, it was intoxicating, dangerous. She was supposed to hate this, hate him, hate being trapped in his world. So why did her body fit against his like it had been designed to? Why did her pulse race every time those pale eyes focused on her? Why did she find herself looking forward to their meals together, to his rare smiles, to the moments when he'd absently touch her hand while reading beside her in the evening? "Dmitri," she started, not sure what she wanted to say. Then the gunshot shattered the moment. People screamed. Glass exploded somewhere above them. Dmitri moved faster than thought, his body covering hers as he took them both to the floor, his arms creating a protective cage around her head. More gunfire, chaos, people running. Dimitri's security team materializing from nowhere, returning fire toward the balcony. "Stay down," Dimitri commanded, his weight pressing her flat. She could feel his heart racing against her back, could hear him barking orders in Russian into the phone that had appeared in his hand. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started. Dimitri lifted slightly, checking her over with frantic hands. "Are you hurt? Amara, look at me. Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. I'm okay." She was shaking, adrenaline flooding her system. "We're leaving, now." He pulled her to her feet, keeping his body between her and the balcony where the shots had come from. His men formed a protective circle as they moved toward the exit. In the car, a bulletproof town car that appeared the moment they hit the street, Amara finally processed what had happened. Was that because of me? Dimitri was on his phone, giving clipped orders. He ended the call, turning to her with an expression she'd never seen before. Fear. Raw, undisguised fear. No, that was a rival faction, probably the Italians, but he reached for her, pulling her across the seat into his arms with surprising desperation. "Boje, when I heard that shot, all I could think was that I'd brought you into danger, that you'd die because of me." Amara found herself pressed against his chest, his arms banded around her like he could physically shield her from the world. She should push away, should remind him this was fake, this was an arrangement, this meant nothing. Instead, she let herself take comfort in his warmth, his strength, the thundering of his heart that matched her own. "I'm okay," she whispered against his shirt. "We're okay." His hand came up to cradle the back of her head, fingers threading through her curls. "This can't happen again. I won't let anyone hurt you. I can't." His voice broke slightly, and she felt him struggling for control. When she pulled back to look at him, his expression was raw, vulnerable in a way that made her chest ache. This wasn't the cold mob boss. This was a man terrified of losing something precious. "Dimitri." He kissed her, not possessive or demanding, but desperate and tender, like she was oxygen and he was drowning. His hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness, thumb stroking her cheek as his lips moved against hers with an urgency that had nothing to do with lust and everything to do with relief, with need. Amara kissed him back, her hands fisting in his jacket, pulling him closer. It was insane, dangerous, wrong in every way that mattered, but God help her, it felt inevitable. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dimitri rested his forehead against hers. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "Don't." She stopped his apology with her fingers against his lips. "Don't apologize for being human. What happened that night changed my destiny forever, because I realized that somewhere between the threats and the protection, the fear and the forced proximity, I'd started to see Dmitri Volkov as more than my captor. I'd started to see the man beneath the monster, and that was the most dangerous position I could possibly be in. The days following the gala shooting were suffocating. Dimitri's security doubled, then tripled. Amara couldn't move through the penthouse without encountering armed men who nodded respectfully but never quite met her eyes. The one time she'd tried to go to the building's gym, Dimitri had appeared within minutes, jaw clenched, ordering her back upstairs. "I need to move," she'd protested. "I need to do something. I'm going stir-crazy." "Then use the equipment I'm having installed in the spare bedroom, but you don't leave this floor, not until I've dealt with the Italian problem." "Dealt with? What does that mean?" His expression closed off. "It means you don't ask questions about my business. Remember the rules, Amara." They'd been dancing around the kiss for 3 days. Neither acknowledged it, but the tension had shifted, become charged in a way that made simple proximity feel dangerous. Amara would catch him watching her while she studied, his gaze intense and unreadable. She'd find herself hyper-aware of every time they accidentally touched, passing in the hallway, reaching for the same coffee mug, their knees brushing under the dinner table. The arrangement had become complicated, or maybe it had always been complicated, and they were just now admitting it. On the fourth night, Amara woke to voices, low, angry, Russian. She crept from her bed, opening her door a crack to see Dmitri in the living room with 3 men she recognized as his inner circle. They were arguing about something, tension crackling through the air. Then she heard her name. Using the girl as leverage, Morozov has been talking, suggesting you've gone soft, that Williams is a weakness. Morozov is dead. Dmitri's voice was flat, final. I handled that personally yesterday. Amara's fiend flew to her mouth. Victor, the man from the gala who'd insulted her, was dead because of her. But the damage is done, another man continued. The Italians know about her. They know where you keep her. There's been chatter about an extraction, using her to force a territorial negotiation. They can try. They'll fail. Dmitri sounded utterly confident, utterly lethal. Double the security on this building. No one gets to this floor without my explicit approval. And find out who leaked her location. I want them bleeding out by morning. Amara backed away from the door, her stomach churning. This was the reality of his world. Death was casual, violence was currency, and she was both precious cargo and painted target. She didn't go back to bed. Instead, she sat on her bathroom floor, trying to process that a man had died because he'd disrespected her, that other men were planning to kidnap her to use against Dmitri, that this beautiful prison had become a genuine war zone with her at the center. A soft knock on her bedroom door made her jump. "Amara, I know you're awake." She opened the door to find Dmitri, still in his dress shirt and slacks from the meeting, looking exhausted in a way that made him seem almost mortal. His eyes found hers, and whatever he saw in her expression made him curse softly in Russian. "You heard?" "I heard enough." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Victor is dead because of me. Victor is dead because he forgot his place." Dmitri stepped into her room, closing the door behind him. "Because he disrespected what's mine and thought there wouldn't be consequences. That's not on you, Malishka. That's on him. Don't justify murder to me. I'm not justifying anything. I'm explaining reality." He moved closer, and she could see the weariness etched into his features, the weight he carried. "This is who I am, Amara. This is my world. I told you from the beginning, people die in my business. Sometimes because they're enemies, sometimes because they're careless, sometimes because they threaten what I protect. And I'm what you protect now? Your property? Your—" He stopped, jaw working. "You're more than that. You know you are." The admission hung between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to address. "The Italians," Amara said quietly, "they're really coming for me? They're considering it. They won't succeed." His hand came up, tucking hair behind her ear in that gesture that had become familiar, intimate. "I have the best security in the city. This building is a fortress. And anyone who tries to take you from me will learn exactly why people fear the Volkov name. You can't protect me forever. Eventually something will. I can, and I will." The intensity in his voice stole her breath. "You think I brought you into this world just to let someone hurt you? You think I'd survive that?" His hand slid to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheek. "I've done terrible things, Amara. I've hurt people, killed people, destroyed lives without losing sleep. But the thought of someone touching you, hurting you, it makes me feel things I thought I'd buried years ago." "What things?" Her voice came out barely a whisper. "Fear. Real fear. Not tactical concern. And something else. Something I have no right to feel for you." His other hand came up, framing her face with both palms, his touch reverent. "You asked me once if I could pretend you were mine, but I'm not pretending anymore, am I? Amara's heart hammered against her ribs. Dimitri, tell me to stop. Tell me this is just the situation, just proximity and adrenaline and fear making us feel things that aren't real. Tell me you don't think about that kiss every moment like I do. Tell me you don't feel this. He pressed her hand to his chest, where his heart thundered. When I'm near you? She couldn't, because it would be a lie. This is insane, she breathed. You kidnapped me. You're a criminal. You've killed people. I should hate you. You should. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. God knows I've given you every reason. But do you? I don't know what I feel. The confession tore from her. I'm so confused, Dimitri. I wake up angry that I'm here, and then I see you, and... She swallowed hard. I see the man who covers my body with his when bullets fly, who makes sure I eat because he's noticed I skip meals, who sits with me while I study, even though you have work to do, just so I'm not alone, who looks at me like you're everything. He finished the sentence, his voice raw. Like you're the first good thing I've touched in 15 years. Like you're light in a life that's been nothing but darkness. Then he kissed her again, and this time there was no desperation, no fear driving it, just want. Pure, undeniable want that she felt in every cell of her body. Amara melted into him, her hands sliding up his chest to link behind his neck. His arms banded around her waist, lifting her slightly as he deepened the kiss, tasting her like she was salvation. She made a sound, need and surrender mixed, and felt him shudder against her. When they broke apart this time, both breathing hard, Dimitri's eyes were almost black, pupils blown wide. Tell me to leave, because if I stay, if we cross this line, I'm not telling you to leave. Amara, her name was a plea and a warning. You need to understand what you're saying, what this means. I understand that I'm tired of fighting what I feel. I understand that you've become more than my captor. And I understand... She cupped his face, feeling the scrape of stubble against her palms. That I trust you. Maybe I'm stupid for it. Maybe I'll regret it. But I trust you, Dimitri, with my life, with my family's safety, with this, whatever this is between us. Something broke in his expression, relief and wonder and hunger all at once. I don't deserve you. Probably not. She smiled despite everything. But I'm choosing you anyway. He lifted her then, carrying her to the bed with surprising tenderness. They fell together onto the expensive sheets, a tangle of limbs and desperate touches. His hands were everywhere, threading through her hair, skimming down her sides, learning the curve of her waist like it was sacred geometry. We should talk about this, he murmured against her neck, even as his lips traced fire down to her collarbone. About what happens next, about boundaries and expectations. Dimitri? Yes? Stop talking. His laugh was warm against her skin. As you wish, Malishka. They didn't sleep that night. They talked instead, real conversations about things that mattered. He told her about growing up in Moscow, about the brutality that had shaped him, about the father who'd beaten him and the mother who'd overdosed when he was 12, about how the Bratva had saved him and destroyed him in equal measure, giving him purpose and stealing his humanity. She told him about her grandmother's strength, about growing up poor but loved, about choosing nursing because she'd watched her grandmother save lives with too few resources and too little support, about dreams of opening a clinic someday in neighborhoods that needed it most. I'll help you, he said, fingers trailing patterns on her bare shoulder as dawn light began filtering through the windows. When this is over, when you're safe, I'll fund your clinic, whatever you need. I don't want your money, Dimitri. What do you want? His eyes searched hers, vulnerable in the morning light. I want you to be safe too. I want... She paused, the truth almost too big to speak. I want this to be real, not circumstance, not protection, not arrangement. Real. It is real. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Maybe it started as something else, but this, us, it's the realest thing I've felt in years. The moment was shattered by his phone buzzing urgently. Dmitri tensed, checking the screen, and his expression went deadly. What is it? The Italians. They're moving now, not waiting. They have people in the building. He was already moving, pulling on clothes, grabbing the gun from his nightstand. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Dmitri, wait! But he was already gone, and she could hear shouting, the sound of running feet, and then gunfire. Amara's training kicked in. She couldn't just hide while people were potentially dying. She threw on clothes, grabbed her phone, and crept to the door. The penthouse was chaos. Dmitri's men were engaged in a firefight with intruders who'd somehow made it past building security. She watched Dmitri move through the violence like it was choreographed, efficient, brutal, precise. He dropped 2 men before she could even process what she was seeing. Then she saw it, a 3rd man flanking from the kitchen, weapon raised and aimed at Dmitri's unprotected back. Amara didn't think. She grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the hall table and threw it with all her strength. It shattered against the man's head, and he went down hard. Dmitri spun, saw the fallen attacker, saw her standing there with her arms still extended from the throw. His expression cycled through shock, anger, and something that looked like pride. I told you to stay in your room. And let him shoot you? Not happening. More gunfire erupted. Dmitri crossed to her in 2 strides, pushing her behind the kitchen island as bullets tore through the space they'd just occupied. He returned fire, his body shielding hers, and she felt each impact vibrate through him even though none found their mark. How many? She heard him shout to his men. 6 total, 4 down, 2 retreating to the elevator. Let them go. I want them to report back what happened when they tried to take what's mine. The silence that followed was deafening. Slowly, Dmitri's men secured the penthouse, checking bodies, calling in cleaning crews with the casual efficiency of people who'd done this before. Dmitri turned to Amara, and she expected anger. Instead, he pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. You could have been killed, he said against her hair, his voice shaking. You should have stayed hidden. You could have been killed. I wasn't going to let that happen. He pulled back, his hands framing her face with desperate intensity. You threw a vase at an armed man. It worked, didn't it? You're insane, brave and insane, and he kissed her, hard and claiming, in full view of his men who suddenly became very interested in other things. Mine. You're mine, Amara. Not because I say so, not because of circumstance, but because you just risked your life to save mine. Because you chose me. I chose you, she agreed, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Then I'm choosing you back. His voice dropped to something fierce and tender. All in, Malishka. No more half measures, no more pretending this is just protection. You're mine, I'm yours, and anyone who tries to change that will learn exactly what kind of monster they've made. Looking at him, this dangerous, beautiful man who'd stolen her freedom and given her a different kind of choice, Amara knew she should be terrified, should be planning escape, should be counting the days until this nightmare ended, but instead, she was counting the ways she'd fallen for her captor. And the terrifying part was how much she didn't want to escape anymore. 3 months later, the war with the Italians had ended with a treaty, negotiated in blood and backdoor deals, sealed with territorial concessions that left Dmitri's power intact and Amara's safety guaranteed. The FBI investigation had gone cold, the witness they'd been protecting turning up dead in circumstances that had nothing to do with the Bratva, officially. Amara should have been free to leave. The arrangement had run its course. The danger had passed. But she was still in the penthouse, still waking up in Dimitri's bed, still fitting into his life like she'd always belonged there. Her online classes were nearly complete. She'd finish her nursing degree in 6 months. Dimitri had already purchased a building in Pilsen for her future clinic, though he insisted it was just an investment and not at all about supporting her dream. Her family knew about him now. That had been a difficult conversation, explaining to her mother that yes, she was dating a Russian mob boss, and no, she wasn't in danger, and yes, she knew how insane it sounded. Her brother had been easier. He'd Googled Dimitri, seen the expensive suit and the reputation, and declared him actually pretty cool for an old dude. Dimitri had retaliated by getting the kid box seats to every Chicago Fire soccer game for the season. They'd found a rhythm, a balance between his world and hers. She attended his business dinners now, not as decoration, but as a partner, her intelligence and instincts proving valuable in reading people and situations. He attended her study groups on video chat, sitting quietly in the background, his presence both absurd and comforting. "You know they all think you're a bodyguard, right?" she'd told him after one session where he'd glowered at a male classmate who'd flirted with her. "Good, they should know you're protected." "Dimitri, you can't threaten every man who talks to me." "Watch me." But there was softness now, too. He'd learned to cook, badly, because he wanted to surprise her with breakfast. She'd learned Russian, adequately, because hearing her try to pronounce his language made him smile like nothing else did. They'd established routines, morning coffee together, evenings reading side by side, nights tangled in each other, discovering that passion could be both fierce and tender. The penthouse felt less like a prison and more like a home. "What are you thinking about?" Dimitri asked one evening, finding her on the balcony watching the sunset paint Chicago gold and crimson. How much has changed? She leaned back against his chest as his arms came around her waist. "How I used to count the days until I could leave, and now I don't count anymore." "You could still leave." His voice was carefully neutral. "The agreement, you're not bound to stay. You know that." "I know." She turned in his arms, looking up at this man who'd become her entire world. "But I'm not staying because of an agreement anymore. I'm staying because I want to. Because somewhere in all the chaos and danger and impossibility, I fell in love with you." She felt him stop breathing. "Amara, I love you, Dmitri Volkov. I love your strength and your vulnerability. I love how you're terrifying to everyone except me. I love that you remember how I take my coffee and which textbooks make me want to scream, and that I can't fall asleep if the room is too quiet. So you started playing music at night, even though you prefer silence." She cupped his face. "I love that you're trying to be a better man, not because anyone asked, but because you want to deserve me." His eyes were suspiciously bright. "I don't deserve you. I never will." "Then spend your life trying," she smiled. "I'm not going anywhere. Promise me." His hands tightened on her waist. "Promise you're choosing this, choosing me, because you want to, not because you feel trapped or grateful or—" "I promise." She seals it with a kiss, pouring 3 months of emotion into it. "I'm choosing you, Dimitri, every day for the rest of my life if you'll have me." He laughed, the sound cracking with emotion. "Boże moi, woman, you're everything. You're light and goodness and strength, and somehow you love me despite knowing exactly what kind of monster I am." "You're not a monster. You're a man who's done monstrous things, but you're capable of so much more. I've seen it." She pressed her hand over his heart. "I see you." He kissed her then, tender and claiming and full of promise. When he pulled back, he reached into his pocket, producing a small velvet box that made her heart stop. I had this made 3 weeks ago, he admitted, opening it to reveal a ring, a deep emerald flanked by diamonds, elegant and understated and perfect. I've been carrying it around, trying to find the right moment, the right words. But there are no right words for what you are to me, Amara. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. You saw past the violence and the power and the money to the man underneath who was desperate for something real, something good. Tears streamed down her face as he took her hand. I can't promise you safety. My world doesn't allow for that. I can't promise you normal because nothing about us is normal. But I can promise you everything else. My protection, my loyalty, my heart, such as it is. I can promise you that clinic you want to build and a life where you help people the way you've helped me. I can promise you that every person who knows my name will know yours too, will know that hurting you means death. I can promise you love, messy, complicated, fierce, real love for the rest of my life. He met her eyes. Marry me, Malishka. Choose me permanently. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I can be worthy of you. Yes. The word came out choked with tears. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly, because of course it did. He'd probably had her exact measurements within hours of meeting her, because that was who Dmitry Volkov was. Thorough, protective, obsessed with details when it came to her. They stood on that balcony as the sun set on Chicago, two people who shouldn't have worked but somehow did, a mob boss and a nursing student, a criminal and a healer, a man who'd kidnapped her freedom and a woman who'd stolen his heart in return. I love you, he murmured against her hair. Do smrti I dalsze, until death and beyond. I love you too, she smiled against his chest. My captor, my protector, my choice. 3 months ago, Amara Williams had walked into a penthouse expecting to clean floors. Instead, she'd found herself trapped in a gilded cage with a dangerous man who'd turned her life upside down. But somewhere between the threats and the protection, the fear and the forced proximity, something had shifted. What started as captivity became choice. What began as survival became love. She'd learned that monsters could be human, that darkness could choose light, that sometimes the most dangerous thing wasn't falling for your captor. It was realizing you never wanted to escape. And as Dmitry kissed her under the Chicago skyline, Amara knew she'd made the right choice. Not the safe choice, not the logical choice, but the truest one. She'd chosen love, complicated, dangerous, beautiful love, and she'd never been freer. If this story captured your heart, show it by hitting that like button and dropping a comment below. Tell me what moment made your heart race the fastest. Was it the first kiss, the shootout, the proposal? And if you want more stories of dangerous men who fall hard for unexpected women, make sure you're subscribed, because next week's story is going to blow your mind. Until then, remember, sometimes the most dangerous risk is the one worth taking. See you in the next one.